If you don't understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will confuse you. That's a guarantee. That's not optional.
Good evening, good morning, and welcome world, and welcome back to another episode of Politics, Economics, and the Struggle to Survive in America. I'm your host, General President, and today what I'm going to talk about is Mr. Byron Allen, one of the 3 richest black people in America, and worth in excess of $3 to $7 billion. He owns the Weather Channel, numerous television shows, and what's going on November 13th, the Supreme Court will be deciding the fate of over 40 million black people in regards to what is technically our civil rights, our basic human rights here in the North American continent or the Western Hemisphere. And it's challenging the 1866 Civil Rights Act. Now, for those that don't know, the 1866 Civil Rights Act is what gave us the 13th, 14th, and the 15th Amendments of the Constitution. The 13th being abolishing slavery, but yet an addendum that said that if you've been duly convicted of a crime, you can still maintain legal slavery. The 14th, which guarantees if you're born in the United States of America, you are a naturalized citizen, because before that, according to the Dred Scott decision, if you are born of a slave mother, you will always be a slave. That was the Tanner Supreme Court decision. 1866 also came after the 1865 at the end of the Civil War, where Abraham Lincoln, in his proclamation, Emancipation Proclamation, which was supposed to abolish slavery in the slave states, not in the northern states. And then the 15th Amendment was said that you cannot discriminate upon race. Now, all of these came about due to the simple fact, under the original Constitution, the first Bill of Rights, the first Constitution, it stipulated that people such as myself, descendants of slaves, as you can see, my shirt as always, descendants of slaves were 3/5 of a human being, 3/5 of a person. We was property. And what transpired in the intervening years was a true dehumanization of my ancestors. Now, the 1866 Civil Rights Act is now been under attack because Mr. Byron Allen had the temerity, the gall, to conduct himself as a citizen of this nation. And he won a $30 billion lawsuit against Comcast and Charter Communications. Now, most people don't understand who Charter is. Most people don't even understand who Comcast is. Well, these people was given free access to be able to service and give you what's called cable. And they was blocking him from being able to put his shows on free airlines, free airwaves. And so he won, and Trump comes into office, and they decide, let's take this to the Supreme Court and let's challenge the 1866 Civil Rights Act, which said that black people, see, I want you to understand something. Under the 1866 Civil Rights Act, it excluded everyone except black people, because descendants of slaves were the only ones that was excluded. It didn't include white women. It only included descendants of slaves. Now, later on in this, I will read the original text of the Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act. But I want you to just pay close attention now, because like I always do, I start every show off with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Because if you understand white supremacy and what it is and how it works, everything else will confuse you. And he always says, I guarantee you that. It's not optional. And under the system of white supremacy, we always have to understand, we are prisoners of war. And we don't like, and I know when I say these types of things, a lot of black folks, most black people don't like to hear these words. But we are prisoners of war because we were captured by our own ancestors and, sold off to the Europeans. It was, okay, here you go. These are prisoners of our war. These are children of whoever knows. I don't know. But exchange here, and now you give me some trinkets. And then they took us all across the Atlantic Ocean, and they call it the African diaspora, the triangle. And we was dropped off in this port, that port. And now I always want you to understand, we was already here before the Europeans. We was already here before what they call the Native Americans. We always was here. But I always says, for the purposes of the show, I'm only going to go from 1619, because we weren't able to document what was happening to us, because again, we didn't speak this language. So our natural language was taken away from us, and we was thrown all in the bottom of those mobile slave dungeons. So I want you to listen closely before I play Mr. Byron Allen. I want you to listen closely what Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. says, because it's appropriate to what Mr. Byron Allen talks about.
Regardless of what you may have been told, expect at all times to be mistreated. As a result of so-called laws and or legal systems that you are involved in and are subject to during the existence of the system of white supremacy.
Now, I led off with this important message from him, because he wanted to understand you're always going to be mistreated under the system of white supremacy. Always, at all times, we will be mistreated. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to let you listen to Mr. Byron Allen. He was on the Breakfast Club. And I'm not a fan of these individuals. I think these are some buffoons. They're in the long line of cooning. They're always asking people how they got their money. Real frivolous shit, for the simple fact we don't have any money. We have 1/10 of 1% of the actual wealth in this nation, which means 98% of all the wealth in America are in the hands of white men and white women. So the number one thing was they allowed him on there. Now, who? I don't know, because I'm really surprised they allowed him to come on this show and talk about this. Now, what he was doing was dropping facts, jewels. A lot of people dismiss individuals like Mr. Allen because he's married to a Caucasian woman. That's irrelevant to me at this particular moment. You can't help who you fall in love with. But what he was explaining to them was how imperative and important this is for people who look like me to understand what is right now. We're on the precipice of being really placed in a position that we haven't seen since our granddaddies, since the ones that came back from World War II. This is what we're going back to. And we don't understand that the Trump administration has filled the federal courts with like-minded individuals such as himself from the Federalist Society. For those that know who the Federalist Society is, always remember, I always say, pick up and pull up Google or Bing when I speak these words. Because if you Google these individuals, you'll understand these people believe in one thing. They believe in taking us back to the original text of the Constitution, which always said, descendants of slaves, black people were 3/5 of a person. It excluded everyone except white landowners. Do you understand that? I want you to say it again. It excluded everyone except white landowners. So I just want you to listen closely when Mr. Byron talks about it.
But why is this such a special case? And in your opinion, why should we be so informed about it?
It's a very special case because it's the original Civil Rights Act in America. It's about protecting our economic inclusion. If we don't have economic inclusion, then you're done. If you are poor and black and don't have an education in America, they will treat a stray dog better than you. As a matter of fact, there are more animal shelters than there are homeless shelters. And so you can't live like this. You have to have access to a proper education. Mm-hmm. You have to have access to economics that can really get you to be a part of the American financial fiber.
Absolutely.
And so this law was designed to give us a pathway to that. This is now being taken away. This is one of the first time the acting Solicitor General, the Attorney General, is standing in the United States Supreme Court to roll back our civil rights to a point where we can't use them.
So
Did you understand that? When he said they're going to roll back. See, this is what they have systematically done to us. See, the system under white supremacy, they codified it in the laws. They codified in the laws. Now, the original text of the United States Constitution said we were 3/5 of a person. We was to be counted as 3/5 of one person. Okay? Now, fast forward to 1866. I want you to listen closely to this. Section 1981 of the Civil Rights Act of 1866 stipulates a federal law prohibiting discrimination on the basis of race, color, and ethnicity when making and enforcing contracts. Section 1981 specifically grants all individuals within the U.S. jurisdiction the same rights and benefits as enjoyed by white citizens. Regarding contractual relationships, courts have interpreted Section 1981 to apply to the employment context, including at-will employment and the independent contractor relationship. Section 1981 also prohibits retaliation. It does not prohibit discrimination on the basis of any other protected class. Now, why is this important? Let me break this down for you. After this, once this was pushed forward, you saw the greatest growth of a group of individuals on the history of this planet to go from not being able to read to be able to control everything and every aspect of your life. After being subjugated for 300 plus years of legal bondage, slavery. Throughout the South, blacks was holding political office, was running our own communities. And then you know what happened 10 years later? Reconstruction and Jim Crow was set in. Again, Jim Crow and legal segregation was set in place because of what they saw we were accomplishing. Now again, my ancestors couldn't read, they couldn't write. We was legal property. And this document said that we shall be afforded the same rights and benefits as enjoyed by white citizens. See, we weren't considered citizens until this particular act, along with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments to the Constitution. So at this particular moment, Donald Trump, his administration is right now trying to repeal this particular section. Now, one thing you got to understand, the Democrats have been sitting on their hands this whole time because these are the same individuals that allowed Section 5 of the 1965 Voters' Rights Act, which said that the southern states, again, the southern states were the ones that committed treason against the United States government. In Section 5 of the 1965 Voters' Rights Act, it said that you have to get permission from the federal government in order to change any type of laws when it comes to voting for black people, not minorities. Because at this particular moment, there was only two groups of people really in America. You don't count the native Indians, because they was on their reservations. There's only blacks and whites. Only blacks and whites. They didn't allow people from Latin America and South and Central and the continent of Africa and every place else to immigrate to America till after the 1965 Voters' Rights Act. And the first group they allowed to come in that wasn't European white people was the Cubans in 1965 with the Cuban Naturalization Act. So again, there was no minorities. The classification of minorities came into effect with the 1969-1970 benign neglect policy implemented by Tricky Dick, Richard Nixon, along with Daniel Patrick Moynihan, another Democrat, Republican, once again tag teaming to harm black people. And that's when they came up with the classification of minorities and said that they will always neglect black people, and we will bring up minorities. So again, that's why it's so important in this 1866 Rights Act when it says, it does not prohibit the discrimination on the basis of any other protected class. See, the only protected class of people in America were the descendants of slaves. But see, take it to the 1980s when Ronald Reagan comes in and they decide they want to include everybody. You know, and now you get Obama when he came president, he want to include the gay people, the LBGQ, whatever, all these fancy, the ABC people, they included them in this. But the original text was only for the descendants of slaves. Now, some get offended because I'm always talking about descendants of slaves and how the system of white supremacy harms all of us. But see, because they constantly harm us, it's okay because you're sitting there watching, but you don't understand. These particular laws that was put on the books for my descendants, my ancestors, and now myself and my children and my offspring, that afforded you that same right to come to this country after we died in every war. It allows you to get these and gain these unearned benefits. Now you're going to be under assault. And I don't see the Hispanic caucus out there fighting for this because they don't understand. They think because they can come to America, they can classify themselves as white. That once this is rolled back, it's not going to affect them. Do they understand? Under the system of white supremacy, they don't see them. They don't see those white kids, the white folks that's in the trailer parks. Take a trip throughout in your neighborhoods and your communities in America and ride through them trailer parks and see one of them trailer parks. Yeah, we might be in projects. Ride through them trailer parks in rural part of America and see just how white supremacy treats those people. But see, this is what happens when you allow people to treat people who look like me in a subhuman way. See, that's what's so important about Mr. Byron Allen's lawsuit. And for him to be on the Breakfast Club and these guys to be kikiing and laughing and thinking it's a joke, they don't understand that the forces, the same people who enslaved us, the same people who tag team with other Africans to subjugate us to all types of trauma, humiliation, degradation, are the same people who, the ones who sold us into slavery to these Europeans. So when I'm watching the Charlemagne and the DJ Envy and Angelique sit up there and laugh and kiki and don't understand the 1866 Civil Rights Act is what the reason why they on that television show and why they get to broadcast that foolishness globally. And had they been paying attention and understood what he was talking about, they would have had the text of the 1866 Civil Rights Act up and been reading it. So when this fool asks him, what's so important about this? And as if he didn't know, now maybe he was being an interviewer and he was saying, let me let him tell everybody what this is about, how important it is. But you know what they did right after that? They put on some ratchet ass music and they started talking about rumors of the day. Now you're not going to see it on all the local channels because they don't really give a fuck about what's going to happen to black people. But I want you to understand something. These people have been rolling this system back because they know they don't want to ever compete. They don't want us to ever compete with them, which is why they block us from everything. And had they been paying attention to what he was saying, everything that we've accomplished so far was due to these particular laws being put on the books. Now, I want you to understand something. After Reconstruction, during the Reconstruction period, and then when you had General Sherman who wanted to give us our 40 acres and our plots and our mule, they made a compromise with one another, the North and the South, and say, you my brother. Hey, I don't like these niggas anyway. We're going to shake on it. We're going to pull our troops back and you're going to fuck them any kind of way you want to. So, Memphis, Tennessee, you niggas who thinking you uppity because you coming back from the war and you got your guns, off with your fucking head. You niggas in Durham, North Carolina, you think y'all balling, huh? Oh, Denmark, Vesey, and all you black folks that was in South Carolina, y'all think y'all really go be able to exist here? And you think we're going to let you be uppity? Fuck you. Off with your head. Oh, and you people in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and Rosewood, Florida, you think that you going to have your own shit here in America? Fuck you. See, this is what happens when you live in America. And because we keep flooding this nation with people who are not native born and don't come from this type of trauma, they come to this country and they think they've made it. But it's until they hit their second and third generation families born here, then they realize, damn, we are in that burning house that Martin Luther King talked about. Hey, this is just part one. The next episodes will be right after this. Politics, economics, and the struggle to survive in America. Peace.
skin. Only add color to my tears. Oh, oh, that splash against my hollow bones, that rocks my soul. Oh, 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 oh. Looking back over my false dreams that I once knew, wondering why my dreams never came true. Is it because I'm black? Somebody tell me, what can I do? Oh Lord, oh, something is holding me back. Is it because I'm black? Yeah. In this world of no pity, I was raised in the ghettos of the city. Yeah, oh Lord. Mama, she worked so hard to earn every penny. Yeah, yeah. Oh Lord, something is holding me back. Is it because I'm black? Like a child stealing his first piece of candy and got caught, peeping around life's corner somewhere, I got lost. Oh, something is holding me back. I wonder, is it because I'm black? Somebody tell me, what can I do? Will I survive or will I die? Oh, oh, keep on holding me back. Keep on holding on. Keep on picking on me. Oh, keep on holding me back. Keep on holding on. Keep on holding on, holding me back. I wonder why you do me like that, but you keep on holding me back. Keep on putting your foot on me, but I've got to break away somehow and someday, 'cause I want to be somebody so bad, so bad. I wanna be somebody. I wanna be somebody so bad. You see, I want diamond rings and things like you do, and I wanna drive Cadillac cars. Oh, I wanna be somebody so bad, but you keep on putting your foot on me, and I believe I can break away and be somebody somehow in some way. You see, I heard somebody say one time, you can make it if you try. Oh, and some of us, we're trying so hard. We're trying so hard. I want you to know that I don't speak for myself, but I speak for y'all too right now. You see, if you're half white, light brown skinned, or high yellow, you're still black. So we all got to stick together right now. brothers. Right on, sister. Right on, brother. Dig this. If we keep on pushing, y'all, oh, we got to make it a little bit further. We got to make it a little further. All we got to do is try, try, try. And some of us, we're trying so hard. We're trying so hard. We're trying so hard. We're trying so hard to be somebody. We're trying so hard, although they're holding us back. And that's the reason that they're doing us like that. You know what? It is. I believe it's because we're black. But hey, we can't stop now. We can't stop now. We got to keep on, keep on, keep on, keeping on. We got to keep on, keeping on. I know and I know and I know that you know that I know it ain't right. It ain't right that they hold us back. They're holding us back.